In 2021, more than 1,400 U.S.-trained Chinese scientists left American institutions and returned to China. This according to a report by Harvard, Princeton, and Massachusetts Institute of Technology. The report revealed that the Trump-era China Initiative was a key reason for why these scientists were leaving the U.S. That program sought to protect U.S. laboratories and businesses from Chinese espionage. But many of the Chinese scientists felt they were being racially profiled. The China Initiative was in response to a Chinese program called the Thousand Talents Program. It often helped China poach researchers from the U.S. and advance its military programs. The report's authors believe losing these scientists could cause the U.S. to fall behind. The author of The Coming Collapse of China and the Great U.S.-China Tech War, Gordon Chang, joins me. Gordon, nice to see you. So why are these people leaving, these 1,400 scientists leaving, and does this hurt us?
Well, it certainly hurts us. Any measures that are meant to protect the United States and its intellectual property are going to have disadvantageous effects. I mean, you can't do something without having something go wrong on the other end. But what choice do we have? Because China has been involved in the mass theft of U.S. intellectual property. John Ratcliffe, when he was director of national intelligence, put that at $500 billion a year. So we got to do something. And sometimes those things are going to harm us on the back end. But
okay, these are Chinese citizens. They're not Americans, right?
Right.
They're over here, and we're training them in our facilities, right? You know, and I mean, even like at Los Alamos, there was a report by NBC a month ago that at least 154 Chinese scientists who worked there over the last 2 decades were recruited to do scientific work in China. So, I mean, it's not like we're going into this blindly. We know this is happening.
Yes, and that really is the obliviousness of the American scientific community, which believes, oh, you know, scientists, we're all scientists around the world, you know, countries don't matter. Well, yes, they do, because China has been weaponizing its scientists. You know, Greta, on Communist Party's top-down system, no Chinese national can resist a demand from the party. And also, they've codified this in the 2017 National Intelligence Law, which requires every Chinese national to spy if received a demand from the Ministry of State Security or relevant agency. So, you know, this is not racial profiling. People, you know, if you start to focus on Chinese nationals, it's because the Communist Party has put this in play, not because of skin color or where they came from.
You know, I guess I use the term China, and I need to correct myself and be more precise. There's Chinese Communist Party, there are Chinese citizens, and there are Chinese Americans, people who grew up in China and just as much American as I am. They're Americans.
Right.
I mean, those are just 3 different groups.
Like me.
All right, like you. Okay. I mean, those. I mean, I'm always sort of careful. I mean, we sort of loosely use the word China, and I regret using that loosely.
But you know, the communist regime, though, does target Chinese Americans, and they go after them because they make the appeal. First of all, either we're going to intimidate your relatives back home in China, or they appeal to patriotism to the greater Chinese nation. So it's not just Chinese nationals that are of concern, it's also Chinese Americans.
Is there, you know, why don't those Chinese scientists that have left, why don't they want to stay here? Is it like what they do in North Korea, where they keep the family back home so that if you don't come home, your family will suffer? I mean, they send them out different parts of the world, but if you decide, if you're like an ambassador to Sweden, a North Korean ambassador to Sweden, and you decide to defect, your family's got a lot of trouble back home.
Right, and the Communist Party of China does that. And they do this for various reasons, you know, or various types of Chinese who are in the U.S. It's not just scientists, it's people that they have a special interest in who believe that they can help them. Sometimes it's officials from China who have left, and they pressure the families back home. But they do use the family connection to try to get people to return to China voluntarily. And we don't know the motivations of those 1,400 who are the subject of this report. But nonetheless, you know, some of them could very well have been agents in place. Some of them could have been Chinese military officers.
You don't hear about defections or seeking asylum of any sort. It's interesting. I mean, at least I haven't read about that. I don't know if that's kept under wraps.
What happens is just, like my dad came over on a Chinese government scholarship. This was the prior government, the nationalist government of Chiang Kai-shek. But he was here during the Chinese Civil War, and the generous U.S. allowed him to stay. So, you know, that's really been the story. But people come here, they decide they don't want to go back for one reason or another, and they find one way or another to stay.
Gordon Chang, nice to see you. Nice to see you in Washington, sir.
Thank you so much, Greta.